Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Distance Dilemma podcast. My name is Shaun. I'm in Dublin, Ireland. This is Imran. He is in Thun, Switzerland, and this is our long distance friendship podcast. This is episode number 53, and we're kicking things off this week as we do every week with our out of context weekly scenarios. This is the part of the show where me and Imran tell each other stuff from our week out of context, and the other person has to try and guess what's going on. So, Imran, what is your out of context weekly scenario?
My out of context weekly scenario is Mexican jugs.
Mexican jugs. Does this concern the female anatomy?
No.
Okay, right. Let's just get that out of the way. Did you go to a Mexican restaurant?
Yeah, I mean I did, yeah.
You sound so defeated.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I kind of gave it away due to my Instagram story, but anyway, go on.
Oh God! All right, okay. Now let's try and remember your Instagram for the last few days. I'm always very conscious of that when we're doing these as well. Like sometimes I purposely won't pick things because
I know.
I'm like, no, that's gonna be too easy to guess because you'll have seen it.
I just have had nothing else that's been that exciting, but yeah, let's just see if you can figure it out.
Okay, so did you you went to a Mexican restaurant and saw some jugs? I am presuming.
No.
No, you didn't see any jugs.
I mean, I did see one, but I wasn't looking at another table for jugs, if that makes sense. Okay, yeah, yes. I'll say yes.
Did you purchase a pair of jugs?
Yes.
Is there anything? So, did they? You like? There's no way of this not sounding sexual.
I know.
Did you
I know
like
his.
the jugs?
I
You
know
purchased
his.
the jugs.
I know his brain is just automatically thinking of boobs. Is this straight? He's trying so hard not to think about it. It's just oh, titties, titties.
All I will say to that is C. That's it. Is it
Can you just figure out what is the jug?
double D? Is it like a salsa dish of some sort?
No.
Is it a wine jug?
No.
Is it something you put food or drink in?
Yes.
Is it a birria jug?
No. What the fuck
Is it for food?
No.
So it's for drink.
Yeah. But can you figure out what the drink is?
Oh, was it Mexican Coke or something, or was it some sort of was it some sort of Mexican drink that it's meant to be for?
No.
Is it for an alcoholic drink?
Yes.
Oh, was there beer in it?
No.
What, tequila?
Yeah, it was in one of them. So you're gonna get it now.
So you bought a tequila jug from a Mexican place?
I didn't purposely buy a jug.
For tequila?
No, not tequila isn't one.
So
of the alcohol.
how do you accidentally purchase a jug?
Okay, I feel like you're in the right premise, so I'm just going to give it to you because you're not asking the right questions. We went to a Mexican restaurant for Valentine's Day in Bern, and we got there and we were had to find it on Google Maps because it was a bit outside of the town. So we got there and it was this abandoned building with graffiti on the door, and we're surely this isn't the wrong address. But there was a gate to the side of it that said, please close the gate after you. So I'm presuming you have to go around the back here. Maybe it's at the back of this building. So a main work recommended us to go. So anyway, we went around the back gate, and then there's this underground cellar, and coming down to the underground cellar, it's all graffiti, but kind of purposeful art graffiti, not just a lad writing his name in black spray paint on the side of the wall. So I was I'm presuming it's down there, Nicola. Anyway, so we went down. Really cool, very authentic Mexican place. Anyway, so obviously, I've said before on the podcast, I haven't drank since January. I haven't touched a drink or anything like that. And Nicola was "Oh, I might get a cocktail." I was you know what? I'm gonna get a cocktail. Why not? I like cocktails with Mexican food anyway. But most people in Ireland know this. When you get a cocktail, half of the time it's ice, and the other time it's just water filled into it. And we looked at the cocktail prices and they were 15 quid, which is normal price for Switzerland. Let's just put that out there. Going out for a meal in Switzerland can be quite expensive. So anyway, we ordered our main, we ordered 2 cocktails. So I'm expecting the cocktails to be tiny, you know yourself, proper, I'd say 3 mils of liquid into it. It comes, man, and it's genuinely, both of our drinks were a jug. Like, I mean, like a hefty size cocktail. And I was, you know what? Yeah, we were both so surprised because it's like we've never had a cocktail where it's like half, like the actual cocktail itself is like there's no ice in it. It was just full of liquid, and I was like, and it was banging. So yeah,
Nice.
that was my out of context weekly scenario without it not
I
talking about boobs.
I was yeah, well, when I was thinking that you like when you mentioned like when I got to purchasing of jugs,
Yeah,
I was kind of like, oh, so he bought something for the apartment.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
where I was going. That's where I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, he saw something, and it was like a memento of sorts to take home and remind you.
I do need
But
to say every time we do this out of context weekly scenario, we are also trying to trick each other. Like we're trying to like make it difficult. Because if I just said to you, "Oh, I got a big cocktail," you'd be like, "Okay, so you went to a restaurant, and you got a big cocktail." Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's it. Like we're purposely trying to like not make it super easy for each other.
Yes.
It's it. Like
Anyway,
that's why like when like there's other things that can be like funnier or they can be better, but like they're harder to like explain
explain.
in
Yeah.
out of context. So that's like why I pick certain things. And by the way, love Mexican food.
Yeah. Oh, Mexican
Oh
is
my
top
god.
three for me.
Mexican
Like
food is my
easily.
favorite cuisine. Like I will
Yeah. Yeah.
take Mexican every day of the week over.
Yeah.
The only cuisine that competes with it for me is Indian.
Same. Same.
Like
Mexican, Indian,
I
top tier for
love Mexican food and I love jugs.
me. Especially Mexicans.
Yeah. I am
Okay. So
still.
what?
By the way, just like in case anybody thinks I am still in a relationship after Valentine's Day, like Simone knows Simone knows this is a well known fact about me.
Maybe not after this episode, but we'll know.
Anyway,
Anyway, what is our context weekly scenario?
my out of context weekly scenario is my caveman instincts.
Your caveman instincts. Okay, does this have anything to do with you cooking?
Yes,
Yes. Okay. So, was it anything to do with meat? Like, were you
yes,
cooking some type of meat? Okay, right. Were you cooking the meat in an unorthodox way?
no,
No. Okay. Were you seasoning the meat in an unorthodox way?
no,
No. Okay. You did. I mean, you didn't hunt the meat. Like, I
no,
can
no,
never imagine you going out there and killing one of the horses in the back garden. You
no, no.
know. Okay. So cavemen. What do cavemen do? They hunt. They gather food. Did you like drop the meat and catch it, like
No.
or some kind of way like that? No.
I love how like that's strictly a caveman thing.
No. 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 I know, but like it's just like, oh yeah, I'm a man. I caught it.
It's more a Spider-Man akin, I would say.
Does it have anything to do with the cooking process?
No,
No, no, okay. Caveman instincts. Does it have anything to do with your beard?
no.
No, okay. Oh, this is a tough one. Okay,
What's
so
another thing you would do with food other than
eat it,
cooking?
eat it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you do that a caveman does when eating? Oh, did you? I know what you did. You just picked it up with your bare hand. You just like, you know what? I'm not using the utensils. I'm just going to eat this like a steak. You just picked it up and started chewing it.
Sort of, yeah. You're
Yeah,
getting you're fairly there. You've got maybe like one or two more pieces, but like you're like you're hot, you're warm.
yeah. So whatever the meal was, I'm not sure. Obviously, I don't know. But whatever the meal was that you ate, you were trying to use the utensils, and it was just pissing you off, and you said "fuck this," and you just started trying to eat it with your hands.
Yeah, again, you're closer to the right track. Less about like frustrations with utensils and more just being like, oh,
Can't
caveman
be
instinct.
arsed.
No,
Okay.
yeah, more like just like on that kind of caveman instinct.
You keep saying caveman instinct like I'm meant to know what this means. Okay.
Because it's just
Right.
I picture myself doing this and like it just like gives a caveman kind of vibe.
I was gonna say something so stupid there, I let my brain not say that out loud. I
We are
was like,
recording.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like saying he's gonna use his feet or something. Um, I want to get it this week. I don't want to get it wrong. Okay, what else? What else? Why would you be trying to eat food without the utensils? Like, what as like does it do a caveman do? What do cavemen do? You didn't
I think
stab it with something. Did you stab it and like pick it up and eat it?
No, to help you with this, try and figure out what I was eating because I think once you
Was it
figure out
steak?
what, no,
Was it a burger?
no,
Was it a takeaway of any choice? Was it a
no,
takeaway? No. Home cooked meal. What do you suppose? Was it pancakes? Because you're talking
no,
about the last week. If this is some niche meal, man, I swear.
no, no. It's something you.
It was
It's something.
meat.
Yeah,
Was it chicken?
yeah,
Okay. Was it was it like chicken on the bone? Like
yeah.
yeah, and you were just picking it up and eating it like Fred like the Flintstones.
Sort of. Yeah. Right. I'll give that
Yeah,
to you.
yeah.
Right. I'm gonna give
Okay,
that to
okay,
you.
okay,
Right.
okay, okay, okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, fair. I
So,
understand that now.
look, our listeners, I think you have heard of me doing more disgusting things than this.
Yeah,
So I
100%.
don't think I'm going to go down your estimates, but for the listeners and anybody who doesn't know me, they might think Sean's a bit of a pig for this. But anyway, we move on. So the full story behind that is I wanted to make a roast chicken. I made a roast chicken, stuck it in the oven, made it, cut it up,
Awesome.
had it. Was gorgeous. Now, anybody who's ever made a roast chicken knows, like when you're using like a carving knife and stuff to get it off it, there's a lot of meat that gets left on the carcass because there's parts where that knife isn't going to get at. And I just looked at it. I'll be honest with you, this is not the first time I've done this, and I've probably been tempted to use this out of context as an out of context scenario before because I would say I do this quite a lot after having a rotisserie chicken or after having a roast chicken. So what I done was we were finished, we were washing up, and I stuck on a pair of plastic food gloves and I just went at the carcass and just started picking the meat off and like I had the pot of gravy that was like left over and I was like dipping the meat in the
Diving
gravy
in.
and eating it.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was like because like it come down in temperature a little bit, like some of the fat like was starting to solidify, so like my beard was like just starting to drip with like a little bit of that and I was like dipping it into the gravy and I was making a mess of myself, but honestly it tasted fucking fantastic because it's all the dark meat, it's all the fatty
Yeah,
bits, like it tastes
yeah,
class,
it's the
like
best part.
and like one of the things that I have to say I love the most about Simone just is like, do you know what, I don't blame you, I also want to do that, I just don't have the balls to do it. And she's like, you have at it, like, but it's just such like it's just such a caveman thing to be like ripping the
I
meat
know.
apart with your hands, and like just taking it down like that, like that's the
That
polite
makes
way
more
of telling that
sense.
story as well. By the way, like
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
really
yeah,
made that sound a lot cleaner than that actually was. Like like I was like doing it, and I was like, I'm a fucking pig,
yeah.
like but it works, and it was in my calories for the day, so yup.
I could just imagine Sean going a ham on this chicken and Simone just looking over like Jesus.
I love any meat on the bone. Did you ever get ham hock?
Oh yeah, so good.
This is probably another reason as to why I got as obese as I am slash have been, because when I used to work in the centre a few years ago, I used to go and like go to Dunn's Deli, buy a ham hock for like £5, and like I
Just
would get a
just
baguette and
tear.
just throw it onto it,
Oh
and then
yeah,
like dip that into soup, you
oh
know.
yeah. Can't
So
go wrong.
great for protein. Great for protein. Also very high in fat. Anyway, enough of me talking about fat because we could be here all day. Let's move on to the topic for the week. And this week's topic was actually sent in by a listener, so thank you very much. And if you guys would also like us to talk about certain things, we have obviously our form for your distance dilemmas. But if there's anything in particular you want us to talk about, you can send us a message. You can also pop it into that form as well. I'm sure we'll make exceptions and just do topics on it as well. Just let us know if there's something you want to talk about in the podcast. Anyway, this week's topic is personal growth journeys. And in brackets, I said who you were and who you're becoming. It's fair to say, like in our we're in our late 20s now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy to say, but when this came in, I was like, yeah, I'm a very different person to who I was 10 years ago, and we kind of touched on that recently. So I thought it'd be a good kind of topic. But I'm very different to who I was 10 years ago. I'm very different to who I was 5 years ago, even like 2-3 years ago. A very different person, so yeah, and I'm sure Imran feels likewise in certain aspects as well, so we just thought it'd be a good topic to talk about, because we're all just trying, it's everyone's first time here
That's it. I think
experiencing
we all
life.
forget that sometimes as well. I
Yeah,
think sometimes, like, I know sometimes when we're talking about, kind of change and growth. And I think sometimes me and Shaun kind of not downplay, but say that other people can't on the, they don't develop as quick as maybe others do and other friends do. I think sometimes we can be a bit harsh the way we come across, but again, like what Shaun said there, it's like everyone's doing it for the first time, and everyone just grows and develops at their own pace and things like that. But I think, look, when I saw this coming in, and I was like, the topic is very heavy, but I was like, from like a basic level thing, if you go back and we, like, let's say we base this off like our friendship, for example, like we became friends, I'd say, coming off the cusp of like third year into early TY, that
Yeah.
kind of like a person year. And like you were a completely different person then to like how I know you now, and then vice versa. Like I'm sure there's probably traits that I still see the same in you as like the way you would see in me, but then also like a lot of differences I would see as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think I reckon it's like interesting for you as well to like, not see people for a few months and like see that personal growth. Then when you come back, like, whether that's like in personality, whether that's like physical changes and stuff that like, when you come back, like, there's like, there can be big gaps that you didn't see with people there. Like, I imagine like that can be, and it's something we've like kind of like touched on before as well. Like, I imagine that can be quite like eye opening for you as well
Definitely.
whenever you're back in Ireland or whenever you're speaking to people for the first time in a while.
What's like one thing that you noticed like who you were? I'd say like let's start on like base level. Let's go like from when we were in school. Like what kind of person do you think you were? And then the next jump for you, then I'm guessing just from knowing you would have been like the PLC and then the college and then now were you and Simone? Like what was if you were looking back now like 10 years ago, what kind of person do you think you were then compared to now?
Um, Probably an attention seeker. Um,
Okay.
is probably the best. But it's probably a good way to describe who I was. Like, I was very, you know, out there, extra. I think it would have been fair to call me loud, and I didn't particularly. I didn't always think before speaking. Not like, in a bad way. That's not like me being like, I always said things and hurt people. Like, I just think, I was quicker to just act on an instinct and go out there and do stuff than I am now. I think now I will often pause and think about things, and that can be like a good and a bad thing as well. Like, I think I got myself into a lot of great situations by just going off instinct and acting on things when I was that age. Like, because you've less kind of jeopardy, you have less responsibility, you have less that can fall apart at that age. Like, when you're 16, 17, whereas now you have to take a lot of things into consideration. Like, when you open your mouth, when you speak about certain people, when you talk about certain things, like, it's just something that, you know and like, I definitely would have been, and like, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I think like I would have been a lot more energetic and fun then, and not that I'm not now, but like, I think, and that can also just be an age thing of like, I don't have the energy I had when I was that age. Like, because you've got a lot less weight on your shoulders at that age. Like I said, like, with your rent, with your finances, with your responsibilities in life. Like, just people our age with kids, man, like,
Which
like
mental.
like it's stuff like that, whereas there was only maybe one person with a kid when we were like 16, 17, like, and like none of those were like particularly our friends, like, so yeah. Like, I'd say, like, I definitely was like a lot more energetic, a lot more instinctive than I am now. But I also, like, I don't hate either version of myself. I think, I have, good qualities in both. Like, and I like that I kind of, I listen more than I speak now. Like, I like that. That's a factor of how I am now. But like, I definitely see like a massive like contrast. Like, I think I've done like a lot of development over those 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. I can even see it from like just being your mate first of all, and then like before, like I knew you in school beforehand, and like we I don't know if we've spoke about this prior to the podcast, but me and Shaun shared a room in Paris before.
Mm.
It was like a school trip at the time, and we weren't necessarily friends. Like we just knew each other in the year and that kind of thing. And I didn't really like Sean's character, but I do think that we were very different type of personalities then. And
Mm.
then in TY, it was a bit different because we started kind of like hanging around with each other within the TY groups, and then eventually then we started playing football together, and then it kind of developed from there. And one thing I would say that I kind of noticed for me was probably a little bit more. I was probably a bit of a people pleaser. I felt like I was one of the kind of people that fitted into a lot of categories in school. Like I felt like I got on really well with like quote unquote the popular kids. I got on really well with people that were a bit lower, like in the class structures or whatever. Um,
The social ladder.
the social ladder, yeah. And I felt like I was always kind of like doing things to please other people rather than being myself necessarily. And I feel like that's something like over the past couple of years I've gotten better at, just kind of like identifying who I am as a person rather than just people pleasing just to or act a certain way with others, because I felt like I did that a lot. Like if I was with a certain group or a certain time, I would like not be my full self or my full self just to disclose any opportunity that someone could like take anything away from me, if that makes sense. But
Mm.
one thing I'd say now that I think I do a lot better is I feel like I'm a lot more supportive of friends and family, which I think years ago, maybe I'd say maybe 5 to 6 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been that supportive. Either that due to being, a self-absorbed thing, or it could be a thing where I don't care as much. But I think maybe that factor for me is probably because I'm now 2 years away from home, and it's like again, like the thought process for me is if I don't keep the connection going, there won't be anything to come back home to, which is not necessarily true, like that's just uh, your negative conscious coming into play there. But I think that's something I've noticed like a development in myself over like in school times. What about like when you jump transition now? Then I'll say like the next phase then would be like PLC and college area. Like what's something that you think you were then, and then like what is something that you've changed now into? And this is only like
Um,
4 to 5 years ago. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but it's kind of like that's kind of like the transition phases I've seen between us two, like as
mm.
being friends and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I definitely like kind of went into my shell a little bit more, but like in a good way. Like I think I've always been like Simone says it constantly as well. Like I'm a very extroverted introvert. Like I have
Definitely.
no problem speaking to a room of people. I've no problem getting up on stage and talking or singing or making a show of myself or making a joke in a classroom and that sort of stuff. And I think I definitely like dialed down the attention seeking aspects and like I kind of as I was going, I think like a lot of people will have this going into college as well because you're like starting to study an area that you're actually interested in. Like you'll knuckle down a little bit more, and you'll just like I spoke before about like listening more than speaking, and I feel like that's where that like transition really started to happen. And like at that time, like I would say around 21, 22 was like when I started to become like the happiest version of myself that I ever have been. And like I like it was like that process and that transition of like me being like, okay, what do I want from my life? Do I want to be sitting in the situation that I'm in? Like I was like and, like this is stuff Imran knows about me, but I haven't talked about it in the podcast, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. But I was in like a really shit situation at home, and I kind of just had to like say to myself, look, I can either sit here and accept this and just keep taking this like what was going on, or I can just take control of the narrative myself and be like, fuck this is my life, this is what I'm gonna do. So like at that point I started to make more selfish decisions in like and like my thesis on this has always been do whatever you want, and this is something I still live by, to say do whatever the fuck you want as long as it doesn't affect other people. If it affects other people, take their feelings and stuff into considerations, and if the positives outweigh the negatives, still do it. So I just started doing like little things, and like that was around the time me and Simone met as well, and like that's no coincidence that like I really like changed how I did things. Like I didn't necessarily change up like my hairstyle, my fashion, like stuff like that. Like I just kind of like changed my attitude of like like this is my life. I'm gonna write the narrative. It's something that I write quite a lot about in my songs. That like coming from like what felt like a prison cage in a way. Like being felt very trapped in environments to like just being like fuck this. No, I'm gonna do what I want. So I feel like that's where I started to kind of like spread those wings a little bit in my case. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's a similar feeling for yourself around that age.
Yeah, I mean, like we kind of, all kind of personal speaking here, like me and Shaun kind of spoke before I moved away about kind of certain similar upbringings we had and some things I kind of dealt with over the past 5 to 6 years in my personal life. And I think the one thing I would say, like during that college period, I was definitely a bit more calculated in terms of like the way I approach situations and stuff like that. And for like a long time, I think I negatively put my down in terms of like self-worth. And I think the by factor of that was I like developed a lot of things about myself that I didn't enjoy as much. And then there was like the other side of that where like there was things I really enjoyed that I kind of founded upon myself, where I was a bit more outspoken about situations that years ago I probably would have shown away from. I was a bit more braver in situations without going into too much deep emotions here. I would say like I kind of changed better in terms of situations where as a child I maybe wouldn't have reacted as strong as I did as like a kind of semi-adult, I suppose. And then I'd say like on the other side of that then is like the betterment was I kind of got a bit more adventurous in terms of like I wanted to travel more. And obviously my knee and Nicola again at that point had probably been about 5 to 6 years ago. And then we had also, I don't know if I actually said this on the podcast before, but like me and Nicola and I had actually broken up for 5 months at the time during COVID period. And I think that change within myself for when we got back together was like a huge development, not only in myself but in our relationship, for like personal growth and like focusing on what was important in the relationship and things we can improve on and stuff like that. Because I think a lot of people forget like relationships are essentially like any other friendship as well. You've both got to work on it. If both of you don't work on it, how are you expecting the relationship to grow, or how are you going to get better at it? And like it's funny because like we still look back at it now and it's like it wasn't something that we expected at the time, but overall we're glad that that came into play, because now the life you set up for each other here and the relationship you set up has been a lot better, if that makes sense. What obviously now we've kind of like gone through like the first stage, the second stage, like so kind of on like the premise of what someone was talking about here, like from the past 2 years and the concept of like who am I becoming, what do you see, for yourself within like the coming years or right now or like the past 2 years that you've experienced with Simone and the house and everything?
Yeah, I think like I don't dwell on the future too much, because I think if like the last 10 years have taught me anything, is you cannot predict what's coming. Like if you would have told me 2 years ago that well, when did we move in here? So yeah, right, 2 years ago, right? So February 2024. We moved into this house in June or June or July 2024. If you'd have told me in February that me and Simone were going to move into a house that year, I'd have said, not a chance. No way that's happening. Like we didn't have the financial situation for it. We didn't have the right circumstances, but like life just found a way to push us in there. So I try not to like think too much of like into the future. There's like obviously goals and stuff that I want to do, but they're very like close to the chest, and like they're very meticulous. Like when it comes to like music, like I have a very specific way I want to grow my career. Like I don't want to, and I'd always kind of said like, and not that I ever actually had the talent to do this, but I never wanted what the likes of like Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo have, like where they were like super young and got super famous. I never ever wanted that like that. Now, am I on their level? Absolutely not at all. But I wanted to like live my life, and go to college and do those things before I ever kind of like took music into a career kind of space. I kind of just kept it as a hobby, and I have like had that plan up until now, and like now I'm at a point where I'm like, right, okay, let's try and start turning revenue over, and let's try and make this my job now, and like that's been a plan for a while. But like when it comes to like personal stuff like that, like I don't know where I'm going to be in 2 or 3 years. I really don't. Like, and I don't. I think that it kind of makes it more exciting if you don't know, and if you're just let life kind of take the wheel. It adds a bit of jeopardy to it, and that's not always going to be fun. Sometimes it's gonna life gets heavy. But yeah, like if the last few years have taught me that, and is like you can't really plan for a lot. But like you kind of mentioned there, like previously, like I'd say like over the last 2 years, especially like when my mom died, I got very, I talked about before about that mindset of like, oh well, like just do whatever pleases you, and if you just do the selfish thing, if it's not negatively harming anybody, then just go for it. Like, and I really like doubled down on that mindset, and I kind of forgot about the aspect of like, not taking of just taking other people into consideration. And it wasn't that I was like actively doing things that were like badly affecting people. It wasn't that at all. It was more just like in conversation with people, I would just take quite selfish stances on things. Like, I would, and this would be more like, like, as a lot of people know, I don't drink, and, we done the whole episode on that before, but like, it'd be things like, with my co-workers, like, I just like wouldn't go to pubs with them, and I wouldn't really engage in conversations with them because of what I was going through at the time, and that was a really kind of selfish thing. And like, I look back and then I go, oh, I probably came across like a bit of an asshole, even though inside I was kind of like, oh no, I need my space, I need this, I need that. And while it wasn't like morally wrong, it didn't like, affect anybody else's mental health. It probably affected my relationship with those people in the early phase, because I took a very selfish and kind of boarded up stance. Whereas like now I kind of look and go, right, okay, while I may not want to go to the pub, or I may not want to do these kind of work activities, like, I still have to engage for the betterment of the team and for the betterment of the kind of community that you have with people, like, and it's like, it's just kind of being aware of the bigger picture in that sense. Like, that's something I kind of would have, I'd say I've kind of grown over. Even like, even up till I'd say a couple of months ago, I was still quite bad with that. Like, I'd still just be like, no, I'm not engaging with that because I don't want to, because I don't feel like I have to, which is true, and it's not harming anybody. But I kind of like over the last few months have gone like, no, it's probably better for social interaction, for mental health, like, for, like I said, community and stuff, and for team building, to just engage those things. And I've had some great nights, and I've become closer friends with people that I work with because of that.
Yeah, I kind of think the one thing I took away from what you're saying there is kind of like you can't really plan for the future necessarily too much. I feel like you really gotta learn, and it's something kind of I've been trying to do the past while, is just be a bit more present in my situation that comes, and just like let things happen and come towards you rather than trying to force it necessarily. But I think for myself, I mean, like I didn't plan to live here. I never would have thought I lived in Switzerland 2 years ago, or ever, to be honest. And then like when the situation came up for me and they got to move here, it was quite, off the cusp. Now it wasn't really talked about that much. I mean, I think I spoken a little bit to Shaun about it before, that the idea was there, but a lot of people were actually surprised when it did come up that we were moving away, because we just came back from traveling and we'd only gone back to work for 6 months. So I feel like for us it was really good, because I wasn't expecting to be in this situation, and I'm kind of being a bit more grateful for it. I think for the future, for me, if I'm being personal, like personally speaking, I really want to focus a lot more on like my health, whether that be physically and like kind of mentally, because I think I neglected it for a long time, and I think that took a toll on me, and I think it took a toll on kind of like my confidence that I used to have, because I felt like I used to be a really, really confident person, not only like in my personal life, but when meeting new people and like in my workplace. I was sort of kind of like that outgoing kind of positive guy, where I feel like over the recent years, kind of like maybe year and a half, I've kind of like lost that aspect of myself. But things like Shaun said there, things get heavy, things come into your life at certain aspects, and things you can't really have much control over. So first off, I'd say like I really want to focus on only controlling things that I can control, and not dwell too much on the things I can't. And then second of all, I would say just kind of like take things, being a bit more present, and like see where things end up. But yeah, I think that was a really nice heavy topic to talk about this week. But thanks for that listener that sent it in. It's a nice one.
Yeah, and do you feel like there's been like certain things that like moving abroad has like helped you, or do you think like there's been some things that it's like negatively impacted you? I know the experience has been mostly positive, but like
Yeah.
has like has there been specific aspects that have been like you feel like I'm just trying to think for like people like I before me and Simone moved in, we did consider it moving abroad and doing stuff, and
Yeah.
like I'm just like that we I know from some of the dilemmas that we've had and some of the like kind of questions and answers that we've had from people in the past, like there's a lot of people who kind of have been debating it, like like is there certain like things that for you personally you've been like this has been great for this, and then like this has been bad for that, just to kind of give some context for
Yeah.
some of the listeners.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think well, maybe I'd look at kind of like the cons first. I would say like the big thing for me was isolation can become like a major part when moving abroad, and it's something you don't really take into consideration. Um, if you don't put yourself in positions to be around people that are doing the same thing as you, which I neglected for such a long time when I moved here because I was so focused on getting a job, getting an apartment, getting my health insurance sorted, like the kind of like the day-to-day stuff that you needed to have so that you could settle here. I think that was really important at the time, but it took me a while to grow out with that. So I think isolation can be a huge thing if you like end up sitting in, which I love to sit in. Like let's just say that I'd be kind of, I would say Shaun would be more of an introvert outrovert, and I would probably be, or I oh sorry, the other way around. Shaun would be an outrovert introvert. I would probably be more of an introvert outrovert. That's kind of the way I look at it. But I think one thing I would say as well is um be very wary of like the people that you meet when abroad, because not everyone has the best interest at heart. It's something that takes a while to find out for yourself, and it's still something I'm trying to develop over time. Also like things as well that I didn't take into consideration when I moved away was kind of like I was kind of like a blind eye to it, but like because I live in a dominant area that like German is speaking, you kind of have to like put it upon yourself to try and develop to learn the language, and like learn the style is not the same as like living at home. Like for example, like people that live in Ireland might think that something is funny, or that think that a style of like joking and laughing can be seen in a different light here. And then that's just using Switzerland for example. Like there's different like people live in Australia, America, Canada, etc. So I think they're like little small things that I would say like are the con side for moving abroad. But then like if you look at the pro side, which I have said like mainly living abroad for me and Nicola is a pro. I would say like things like of course the financial side is great because we're trying to develop a better future for ourselves to come home to, which a lot of people are doing. Because essentially we do want to live at home and to build a family there, and that's like the long term goal. And then like Sean's been over, he can even say it for himself. Like the country's beautiful. It's very sunny. The seasons here are very limited to what they are. So when it's summertime, it's really sunny. When it's spring, you're coming into the sun. Like shorter winters. It's not as cold as home. So like, and they all these little things like they do play a factor if you don't even think about it. Is like a lot of people say when they move away to the sun, their moods are higher because of the melatonin levels, more vitamin D in their body. So yeah, it's little things like that. I think over time that I've noticed just living abroad have made like a huge difference to like the way I am on a day-to-day basis. And then also like on the other side of it as well, I'm meeting new people every single day, which is great because like I think when you're at home, sometimes if you do hang around with the same people all the time, it's very hard to meet new people. I know there's situations like kind of like maybe Sean can kind of talk a little bit about a pro is like being in the music industry is you're constantly meeting new people and making new connections, which is like obviously a great factor. But I think like what can happen at home if you're not involved in clubs or communities or like supporting a football team, it's very hard to meet people on a daily basis just because of the way we're born into this kind of social media world. Less people are going to pubs, less people are going to community things and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean overall I would say definitely if anyone is thinking about it, take the leap, just try it. And look, I always think if you don't like it you can always return home. That's one thing I'm very grateful of in my situation is if it didn't work out here, I know that we would have an opportunity to come home, and not everyone has that, and that's something I need to be a bit more grateful for, like over the next couple of years, kind of like taking into consideration my area and environment at the moment. But yeah, that's kind of like just things I've noticed on like a brief role. Maybe you can talk a little bit about like the same kind of thing about meeting people at home and like the spatial awareness about being in the music industry. Is there something that you noticed that's like pro and like a con about that?
Yeah, I feel like one of the things that from being around like so much music and like a lot of artistry as well, like you have to be very aware, and you kind of touched just people who don't really have the best interest at heart, and like not that they're all like bad people. That's not what I'm saying at all, but like it's something I kind of like struggle with when I'm talking to people, and I'm trying to figure out, do they actually care or are they just being polite? Because like I know myself, and like I'll put my hand up and say that I do this, and everybody does this who does any sort of creative thing when they're trying to put themselves out there. They're doing what I like to call they're playing the politics. You're going out, you walk up, like someone plays a set. You could have thought their set was not, it was grand, like nothing special, but you'll walk up to them, you'll shake their hand and say that was brilliant. that was great, well done. You'll shake their hand, you'll talk about their song, and you may actually have said, oh yeah, this was good. I actually did enjoy those parts, but some people aren't always doing that for good reasons. The reason they're actually doing that is so you'll follow them, but they won't follow you back. And then, you'll interact with their stuff, but then they won't do the opposite for you. Like, it's them trying to kind of like farm engagement in that way, or farm an audience in that way, by like making that personal connection. And like, there's some people who I've come across that, like, I just, you just, when they're trying to play the politics of it, and when they're trying to, like, no, play politics isn't the right word, because like everybody is playing the politics, but when someone's being genuine is probably the better
Yeah.
way to do it. Like, and like, it's part of like the personal growth of like being aware. And like, I try not to do it unless I actually mean it. Like, I will go up to people and say, hey, your poem, your song was brilliant, and I will do it if I actually mean it. And if I don't, it's that typical thing of, if you don't have that nice to say, don't want at all, like, so I just won't, like, I won't engage in that way. And that can come across a bit assholey sometimes, but I would rather come across authentic. And if I'm going to say something, I'd mean it, than, like, give somebody like a watered down answer, and like, give somebody something that's half-assed. Like, I'd rather say something and stand by it than, just say it for the sake of saying it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Like a lot of people kind of come across as genuine, and it sometimes takes a bit longer than the initial connection that you meet with that person to decipher if that person is being genuine or not. And I think that's something I've lost many friends over, the past 5 to 6 years, that kind of have came in and came out of my life. And it's not something I've ever been great at. Seeing people that are always like in the best interest and best heart at times, but it's something I'm trying to get better at, and that's all we can do, folks. All we can do.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it. But thanks again for that really enjoyable topic. I'm going to bring in the pop culture slash current affairs because I know we're conscious of time. So recently in Switzerland, I'll bring this up. I have it written out in front of me, so it might be a bit easier for me to describe the situation for the folks. But Switzerland is set to hold a national referendum on the 14th of June on 2026 on a proposal to cap the country's population at 10 million. The initiative was launched by the right-wing Swiss People's Party (SVP) and aims to limit immigration if the population exceeds 9.5 million, with stricter measures if it reaches 10 million before 2050. Switzerland's population is currently around 9.1 million. If passed, the government could be required to restrict asylum and family reunification, limit new residency permits, and potentially renegotiate or even terminate free movement agreements within the EU. Supporters argue that immigration is putting pressure on housing, infrastructure, and the environment of opponents, including the Federal Council, and many business groups warn it could harm the economy and damage Switzerland's relationship with the EU. At the same time, official data released in January showed that the net immigration and asylum seekers applications actually fell in 2025, which adds another layer to the debate. So it's not introducing the cap yet, but the voters will decide in June whether to limit the population growth and tighten migration rules significantly. It's the first European country to put this cap forward. So what do you think of that?
I've never heard of anything like that in my life. That's
Yeah.
like, that's like, how do you limit I understand, like, you might want to like limit people coming in, but like, how do you stop people having babies?
Yeah.
Like, this is my question with this, like, like, how I don't really get how this works. Like, I get there's like, it may be like a thing of like allocating resources and stuff, like, but
Mm.
I don't know, like, it gives similar kind of like tones to like the right wing people in Ireland saying Ireland's full when
Mm.
there's more than enough room for people. Like, Ireland has had like 15 million people on the island before the famine. Like, there's enough room in the country. There's like 7 million, including the north at the moment. Like, but I obviously don't know fully about the situation in Switzerland. What's like the consensus been around, like, you guys, especially as people who have come in, who have emigrated to Switzerland? Like, are you guys
Mm.
starting to get dirty looks now? Like,
No, like I mean, I've been on the consensus. Like I've been talking to people in work, that are Swiss, and kind of like asking their opinion on the situation, and they don't seem to understand like, necessarily what the government are trying to implement here. I think they believe that there's a big issue with immigration, but like a lot of people say, and like most countries, you need immigrants to come into the country so that you can build resources, infrastructures, and put structures in place so that the country can grow. I mean, the Irish backbone would literally not be growing right now if it wasn't for immigration. So I think every country needs it. I think we would be so boring as like a nation worldwide if we all just sat in our own countries and didn't explore the world. You need different people, different cultures, because that's like how people can identify themselves in that culture. And I think Ireland has been a great example of that over the past recent years, you know. But yeah, not for me necessarily. I've never really had situations where I've had dirty looks and stuff. I mean, I do experience a lot of people kind of maybe a bit more curious of why we're speaking English in a Irish twang on the train, or you know, some people may, you know, stop us if we're on the bus and ask, "Oh, where are you from?" and that kind of thing. But the consensus, like from when I was speaking to people, is they don't see why there will be a cap limit, considering that Switzerland is the richest country in Europe right now, and also they're the most profitable in-house. So it's kind of, I'm finding a lot of holes and gaps to why this is in place. Maybe it could be on the right-wing consensus, as it was saying that the initiative was launched by the right-wing Swiss party SVP. It could be on the aspect of them thinking, you know, the kind of right-wing aspect of thinking, oh, they're taking our jobs, they're taking this, you know, kind of like the consensus what we have been seeing in Ireland over recent times. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a bit of a weird one. I've been trying to like read into it a little bit more, but I think until you know, the referendum comes on, you don't really know what's too much information to put in.
Yeah, the one thing for me is like, how do you stop like a baby boom happening? Because like these things do happen,
Yeah.
you know, as well. Like I just don't understand how you can cap a population. Like, no, that just is me. Like, you know, there could be reasons for this, like, you know, but or like ways to do this, but like, you know, but I don't understand how you would really strictly enforce that. Like, you know, if you and
Mm.
Nicola decided to have kids in Switzerland, what's stopping you guys having 5 kids? Well, I suppose you can't flush the
Mm.
toilet after 10 o'clock, so this wouldn't be the first time Switzerland have brought in a fucking an eyebrow raising law of some
Mm.
sorts.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this plays out over the next couple of months. I mean, again, I think it's more to do with maybe like the idea around immigration rather than actual population rising. Because, like you said there, like how can you stop, you know, people developing families and babies and everything? But
Mm.
I don't really understand why the cap is coming in or why they need to push this forward. And then the question is if this does come into play, looking at other European countries that might see this and try to use this for their own country. So that's another danger you need to look at. You know, could be all turned into capacity holders and stopping it. Like, let's be real, Ireland's a small island off the coast. So like you need to remember, like we are one of the highest, I think, in Europe for mixed generations and mixed cultures into our land. So I think, you know, more the merrier. I mean, you need people here to build infrastructures, and that's how the countries grow. So
For sure.
I don't really see what Switzerland's part is doing here, because I'm sure a lot of the jobs that Switzerland have in the backbone are probably based off immigration. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, like not to. I actually just thought we were struggling to come up with a second thing for current affairs this week, but I actually something just popped into my head as well, and it's not too dissimilar to, like, you know, right wing idiots. Let's just say that. But well, we'll go into it like in 2 minutes, because I do think this is interesting. Like, you know, but like like you said, like it makes a country more fun, more vibrant by having immigrants in. Like, you know, some of like the best people I've worked with have been immigrants or have been sons of immigrants. Case in point, I've got a podcast with one. You know, so I said that and I was like, I could be getting something so wrong here.
I mean, he's not necessarily wrong. Although I was born in Ireland, like if I didn't come out, if my dad didn't come to Ireland in the first place, like I wouldn't have been born. So you got to look at it from that aspect.
That's
And then
exactly
again,
what I was going for.
but you know, the thing I always think is really funny, and it's kind of not to do with this, is like who identifies like a land and says they're from there. Like if you went back like millions of years ago and seen the coast of Ireland, like someone had to just find that land and just call it Ireland. The same thing, like you know, when Christopher Columbus came to the States, like what is an American when you think about it? Like when someone says they're American, it's like, what do you mean that you're American? It's like they've got no culture back leg to fall off. The whole country has been, built off immigration. And that's why I'm saying how important immigration is. You know what I mean? You need people to come into a country and build upon the infrastructure so that the country can grow. That's what I'm not understanding from this point of view from Switzerland. It's like, how are they not understanding how big immigration is for their own
Mm.
country? I think maybe they focus too much on like their wealth because they're doing so substantially well in terms of income into the country.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, do you notice like a big difference between the right wing in Switzerland compared to Ireland, or are they kind of
Mm,
singing off the same hymn sheet?
I think they're a lot more quieter, or maybe I just don't see it as much as like publicized as maybe it is in Ireland. I mean, over recent times, I mean, me and Shaun kind of spoke about it, and if you're not from Ireland, you're probably living under a rock. But like the growth in right wing in Ireland has been dramatic over the past 3 to 4 years. But we're here. I know SVP party. I know a little bit about them, but from what I've like visually seeing like environments in like Zurich or big cities, I don't see it as much as I would probably see it vocalized in Ireland. So I can't really speak on that. But I will say the one thing I want to see over the coming months will be like how hard will they be pushing this in terms of like advertisements, billboards up on the sidewalks and stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. What were you saying there? You have another topic to bring in?
Yeah, it just popped into my head there as we were talking about that. But there's been quite a lot in being said at the moment. Did you hear about the kind of racism things that have been happening with the one of the Irish rugby players?
No, no.
So I didn't watch the Six Nations at the weekend. I haven't watched any of the matches so far. But apparently a player made his debut. His name is, I have it on my screen here. Edwin Ogdogbo, I believe I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, but Edwin Ogdogbo. He is born and raised in Ireland. He was born in Cork. He's from Cove, I believe. He is he's a black man, and he made his debut for Ireland in what should be like one of the proudest moments of his fucking life. He is just been like hounded with racist abuse in comment sections from like it's everything from like the IRFU's official social media account to his social media accounts, any like RTE, any like publication that's posting about him. The comments are just being flooded with racist assholes just saying he's not Irish, saying that he doesn't belong in the country, and just like going down that rabbit hole of making stupid comments. Like the fellow was literally born in Cove in Cork. He is as Irish as me and Imran. He was born in the fucking country. Like he is Irish. And it just it's I've been seeing this, and Ireland has, and this is something I've been saying for a while to myself, and I don't think people realize how bad it is. But Ireland has got a really bad racism problem. Like Ireland is a very, I wouldn't say we're a racist country because I think there is more good than bad, but there is a racism problem in Ireland. And it's just such a shame. It's such a shame that like this young fella's debut, which should be such a proud moment for him and his family, is just being cast aside and put in the shadows because of all these fucking allegations. It's probably going to be a day that he doesn't look back on fondly because of all this stuff that's happening.
And I feel like, I like take into consideration, I don't always see why colour has to come into the forefront. Let's not take into consider he probably worked his ass off to make it onto the squad. And I think that's what happens with a lot of sports stars is it can be affected because people take it upon themselves to make it more about them and how big of a situation it is rather than he's just a great player and that he's been able to, work so hard and been able to make a debut for himself, which I'm sure was probably great for his family and something he'll never forget. But like you were saying there's just some idiots online that take it upon themselves to say something not nice at all. And I think we've said this, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all.
Yeah, but that's it.
Yeah.
Like I just don't see how this fella making his debut for his country is his country, by the way, because he is fucking Irish. I don't know how that's affecting you. Like, for me, it's like it's like the people who are leaving these comments are just fucking sour that he has worked his ass off to get that opportunity, and he has gotten himself to that level, and they couldn't get themselves to represent their country or represent themselves at a high level in some form. Like, it doesn't have to be rugby; it can be in any sort of sports or any sort of kind of creative artistic thing. But it says way more about them than it does about Edwin, and sympathies with him. I hope he goes on and has the fucking tournament of his life. I hope he gets man of the match in every fucking game, and I hope he becomes player of the tournament or something like that, and he shuts them all up, because I hope he becomes like one of the best players in the team, so we can just shut them up and be like, yeah, you'd be fucked without me, though, wouldn't you?
Exactly, man. And I think that's what it is. This is like outsider's perspective of this guy. He can only really focus on himself and just play his game, like unfortunately. But I like same boat as you. I hope everything goes well for him and come on the Irish, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, there we go. And
There we
also,
go.
actually, sorry, something else just popped into me. I've got loads of current affairs now. Ireland got drawn against Israel in the Nations League.
Yeah.
That
I
is
was
gonna
I
be,
actually surprised we didn't bring this up because
yeah,
and it's also we got Kosovo, which is also an interesting fact. If read a bit about their war history there, go back a little bit, and then I think Austria was the
yeah,
final
Austria,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been seeing some funny TikTok edits people have been making about us playing them, but it'd be interesting. It'd be definitely interesting to see, and something we'll probably cover a bit more closer to the
But
time.
we kind of talked a little about football last week. We don't like to talk football too much, but like, what's your opinion on should these games go ahead? What do you think should happen regarding this?
So I was talking to one of the lads about this before on work, I think 2 weeks ago, and I am definitely in the boat of if you're going to boycott a tournament, I don't think it's to specifically be one team. So, like for example, the World Cup is now everyone knows it's happening in the States. There's been a big issue, or in the States slash Mexico. Everyone knows like there's a big issue now coming up forwards into the Northern Night about ice in America. So should it be upon ourselves as every European team to boycott the tournament for it not to happen because of where it's situated? It's kind of the same thing in Ireland now. It's like should like we have been drawn with Israel, Kosovo, things that aren't in control, things that just came out of a pot that we were able to get them. I'm on full belief is the game should go ahead, but I think that the whole time, and I know this is going to happen, the whole time during the game, and they must be aware of the situation is going to happen for the Israeli players, is they're going to get a lot of abuse. And I think Ireland's always been at the forefront of we stand with Palestine and ourselves and Shaun about how much we are both with pro-Palestine as well. And we think we'll see like major backlash from these games that will go ahead. Because it was the same thing, like imagine they had qualified for the World Cup. That would have made an even bigger boycotting situation there. So on one hand, I am in the thing like the game should not go ahead and the game should just not be played. But then on the other hand, it's like if one team is going to do that, you need the backlog of all European teams to not play the games, if that makes sense. But I don't know. What do you think?
I think they should boycott the game. I don't think those games should go ahead. Specifically, I know Kosovo and Austria don't have the cleanest records, but we played Austria before, and Kosovo was an easy win. So let's play Kosovo. But right with Israel, I don't think they should. I think they should call those games off. I think the FAI should refuse to take part, and if they end up surrendering those games and taking 3-0 losses as a result, I think, look, are we going to win the Nations League? No. Are we going to qualify for the finals of it? Probably not. Is the Nations League a big international tournament? Does anybody actually give a fuck about it? No. But I think it says a lot more about Ireland. It says a lot more about the Irish. And it's. I think it's more important to be on the right side of history, and I think it could be, a launching point. And let's say you give Israel those 6 points, and as a result of them getting 6 points in that game, they beat Kosovo, they lose away to Austria, and they draw a home or something like that, and they end up qualifying for a tournament because of this. That puts Israel in front of more people, and if Ireland can be the catalyst to start off these protests, when they come against bigger nations, when they play the likes of Spain and Germany, having if you can have Ireland start this trend in a way, so that when they play against the likes of, like, imagine they played Spain and they had a lot of Catalan folk come to that Spanish match. Like, the Catalans are, like, historically pro-Palestine as well, because they've suffered similar oppression. You could start a really big movement, like, because at the end of the day, football is the world's game, but it's also about respect, and some things are bigger than football, so I'm happy to surrender 6 points, give 2-3-0 losses to the FAI. I think it's far too important, And a lot of people will say keep it politics out of football. Football is political. Football is
Football has
always
always been political.
Football has
It's
always been
always been.
political because it's regional. If you were supporting a Premier League team, if you're supporting a League One team, it's based on your area, it's based on your community and your beliefs. Football has always and will always be political, and you cannot change my mind on that. I don't think the games should go ahead. I think it's a great opportunity for Ireland to say fuck Israel and show ourselves and the rest of the world that we want to be on the right side of history.
I mean, I definitely do agree with you there in some aspect. I definitely think it is something that will probably become a bit more interesting closer to the time, even though we're not that far away from it. But we'll definitely see how it all plays out. I know we are cautious of time, so I will bring into your distance dilemmas. This is the part of the show, guys, where you guys send in your distance dilemmas. We do have a new link on our Instagram page. You just send in your dilemma. It's all anonymous. We don't know who it's from. And then me and Shaun dissect it each week. We only have one this week because it's quite long, quite big. So what I'll do is it's broken into 4 sections. So I'm going to read per section and then maybe me and Shaun will dissect it overall. I don't know if you're happy with that or yeah.
Yep.
So I went to a work training last week to be able to program a lab machine at my workplace. The training was 3 days long. The trainer was super nice and the content was insane but super interesting. For context, the training consisted of 6 people in a classroom. First, we had a theory class for some minutes with the trainer, and then we were paired with another person to go to the machine and the practice we learned. Okay, so pretty basic, basic there. It's giving us the background to what the situation is, and I don't really need to talk too much about that. But the random guy that I was paired with for the practical exercises basically mansplained me the whole way through. We had agreed that we would take turns to do the exercises, but every single exercise he would pick up the keyboard and mouse and start talking to himself on how to do the exercises, completely disregarding my existence. Sometimes he would explain, but he was a proper programmer, so all his wording was overcomplicated and not helpful. I would give him suggestions and he ignored me. Once I did an exercise and he completely deleted it and started again exactly the way I did it. Whenever I managed to start an exercise, he was constantly telling me what to do, so I couldn't even think for myself. And this went on for 3 days, so I was always arrived home super tired and feeling super stupid. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. What do you think about the first part of it? The mansplaining aspect. It's something, I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced that. And sometimes I've probably done it myself without even realizing it. It can be really annoying, I think, in workplace situations where someone is trying to talk to you like you're a child and that shouldn't be respected in the situation. But the thing I'm not understanding is why is the guy not giving the girl a bit, or I'm presuming it's a girl, I'm not too sure, I'm probably reading through the lines here, but is like not giving this person like time to try and learn it. I think that's just really condescending sometimes.
Yeah, but like it's supposed to be a practical exercise where you both are taking turns getting experience, and by the sounds of things, this fella has enough experience, he knows what he's talking about. So in this case, the person who sent this in needs to experience this a little bit more, needs to practice, needs to make mistakes and learn from them,
Thanks.
and he's just not giving this person the opportunity to do that. So that's kind of all that I can see. Like it's obviously frustrating as well, and I'm reading it similarly to you, where in my head I'm kind of led to believe that this is a female who has submitted this, and the thing I think, especially in the space, men don't mansplain to other men in this context that much, especially when they're both on a training course. Men definitely do mansplain to each other, when there's different. I would say I've had managers in the past who have mansplained down to me, or they've broken it down like that, but that shouldn't be the case here, because they're both on the same training exercise. So that's what's kind of leading me to believe that I say this as a feminist, I'm not trying to be oh, it's a girl, whatever, but I'm getting a similar vibe to you in that way. I don't, like we said, we don't know who sent with this, we don't know what gender they are. But it does sound like a guy being an asshole, just mansplaining down to the woman.
I will finish off the last 2 paragraphs and maybe we can just kind of do an overall. I was wondering, what would you do in this situation? Would you get mad at him and tell him off, but then create a bit of tension for the next days of training Tell the trainer to pair me with another person, but also probably create tension because he would notice that I didn't like to be paired with him or not say anything and get through those 3 days. I ended up not saying anything, and now I came back to my office and I'm reviewing all the exercises in the machine and not doing them on time. However, I'm wondering if I should have told him something because he probably will do this to other people and it's not nice. Thank you. Mm. I mean, I can't speak for this person because they were in the situation, they decided not to say anything. And it's hard for me to like say from like looking at it what I would do. But I have experienced this before, and I probably have done the same thing. I didn't say anything because I fell into that bracket of being a people pleaser, and I just didn't want to make tension. I'm very much a person that doesn't like tension in my life. I very rarely speak up if I want to make an argument, unless it's something I completely disagree with. Let me just put that out there. But what I would say I would have probably done in the situation, I might have had a conversation in private, either with the guy first, not like bringing it up, but just saying like, hey, look, I want to do a bit more learning here. I feel like you're kind of taking a bit more time on the training. It all depends how you communicate with the person because we don't know. Like this guy mightn't even notice he's doing it. He also might realize he's doing it as well, which is the other aspect of it. So I think the first thing I probably would have done in that situation, I probably would have approached the guy for a private conversation, and then if not, then go higher up and just say to the person taking the class, look, I want to be paired with someone else. Is that okay? And then go from there. But yeah, not great. I mean, I've experienced mansplaining loads of times, and I've probably done it myself a few times without even realizing it. But yeah, I think this person did not necessarily do the wrong thing, but I do understand her or his aspect of saying that she probably should have said something because he'll probably do it again. But again, you learn with these things. It's different scenarios and adventures, and especially in the workplace, it can be hard to speak up because you're afraid to create tension or any difficulties for everyone else in the room. But yeah, that's kind of my view on it.
Yeah, I think it's tough because like I like I've been I think most lads will have unintentionally mansplained something before. Like I say this like as somebody who's quite self aware with it, like but even smallness stopping on you kind of mansplain that a little bit, and it's not for like for like thinking of anything got to do with like the person. Sometimes I feel like especially with people like me and you, like sometimes when we're really passionate about a topic, we will just go and deep dive into things and assume you don't know certain things and just like kind of fill in blanks a little bit. And I've definitely been guilty of doing that in the past, and it's not something I like intentionally do because I'm speaking to a certain type of person. It's just something that like when I get passionate about a topic. So, but that I don't think that's what's happening here. For me, I think the best course of action would have been, and I think you know maybe saying you mansplain to me isn't the first thing you should say. You can just pull them aside and say, hey, you know, try and, just say it kind of black and white and be like, look, I'm not getting as much out of this. I wanted to tag in a little bit more. And if he doesn't listen to you after the first time, then say, look, I feel like you're kind of mansplaining to me a little bit here. And I think, I think now because people are so self-aware of like the weight, like being like, saying that like your mansplaining is like I think like if someone said to me, "Oh, Shaun, you mansplained that," like and I kind of go, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I did not mean for it to come across that way at all." It's almost like it's a slur in a way, like to be like you mansplained that to me, like like that's kind of how I feel about it because I don't want other people to feel. I didn't mean to. I would never mean to make somebody feel lesser in that way, but that doesn't seems like it's translating here. So I think like after that point, if you kind of have that second conversation, say, hey, I think that's what it is, you throw that word at them and then nothing happens, then that's where you have to go up to somebody in a superior position and say, look, like not the trainer, and say, look, I want to be with somebody else, like this just doesn't work now, and it does make things, it can make things awkward, depending on the people, depending on the size of the room, depending on if you're like looking at this person across the room. But it's a tough one. I don't think there's like a particular like correct answer. It's just kind of like what you feel is best. But now, this person is now on their own time having to review their exercises and basically having to do their time again. So that's negatively impacted you.
Yeah, I think it's something that kind of like a lot of us have experienced, and it's something that when you look back at it, you probably wish you change your situations. But again, you kind of learn with these things, and it kind of develops over time about how you view things, and I think this person not necessarily, from my point of view, did necessarily nothing wrong. I just think that maybe the situation they could have changed a little bit. But again, that's for me and Sean looking from an outsider's perspective. We're not, professionals on the matter.
And just for any of the women out there, what mansplaining is
That's a good way to end it. And I'm out.
Okay. Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah. But yeah, peace, love, and rock and roll. That's try not to mansplain it. Be self-aware.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I'll let you roll out the red carpet.
Thank you very much. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for tuning in to episode 53 of the Distance Dilemma podcast. My name is Shaun, and I'm in Ireland. This has been Imran. He is in Thun, Switzerland. And this has been our long distance friendship podcast. And we will see you again next week. New episodes every single Monday, 6 a.m. Irish time, 7 a.m. Central European time. Until then, guys, thank you very much for listening. And we will talk to you again next week.